What's doing, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you've never been here before, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up bell. I have plenty of videos up there you can check out. Everybody else, welcome back. I'm going to tell a very funny story today about Sing Sing Prison, about how I was smuggling alcohol and selling alcohol inside of the maximum security prison system. There was a lot of guys that would make hooch, which is prison wine, but I was getting in actual absolute vodka inside of the prison and selling it. So I'll tell you what transpired, how everything fell apart, and how I ended up getting busted, the whole 9 yards. But an interesting story about how it took place. My uncle used to come visit me all the time, and one day during a visit, he said he was asking me questions about how guys got narcotics into the prison system, and he was asking me if guys make wine. And he was just curious about how things function inside of the prison. I wasn't even in prison long yet. I was in about 10 months at the time, so I didn't even have a year in prison. And I was explaining these things to him, and my uncle would come see me about once a week. Sometimes once every 2 weeks. So right after this visit, he comes to visit me again a couple of days later, which caught me off guard. And I says, what's happening, man? Oh, thanks for coming back. You know what I'm saying? So he said, listen, I went and I bought a canning machine. He goes, I drove into Brooklyn and I bought a really good canning machine. I said, what do you mean? He says, it was about $600. It's high quality canning machine. He says, and it's so you can seal cans like Campbell's soup cans and SpaghettiO cans and, any type of can, 10 ounces, 16 ounces, 24-ounce cans. And, he said he then ordered a bunch of cans. He ordered about 400 cans with the lids. And he also went and got labels that he can put on the can. What he did was he actually wrote the Campbell Soup Company and told them that he cans their product and stores it. And he wanted labels for the cans. This way he would know what was in the cans. And they mailed him 1,000 Campbell Soup labels. So he had the cans, he had the lids, he had the labels, all brand new. And he had this $600 canning machine. So he explains all this to me on the visit. And I was caught off guard because, first of all, this really wasn't my uncle's style. My uncle was a lieutenant in the New York City Fire Department. And he was retired at the time because he broke his back on the job, and so he was no longer in the fire department. And it was unlike him to come up with this idea. This wasn't really his style. But I said, let's give it a shot. So I said, well, we have to be cautious. And I said, I'll explain to you what steps you need to take. I says, anytime that you mail the package, I said, of course, make sure you put a fake return address. I said, that is completely fabricated, or, get it out of the phone book, whatever it is. I says, don't use your handwriting on the box. I says, make sure you print out the label, the to and the sender label, the to and from label. Make sure you print them out. I says, and then I don't want you even mailing them from the town that you live in. I said, so fabricate the return address. I says, don't use your handwriting, mail it from another town. I says, and let's do a little test run. I says, and make sure you just mail about 3, 4, 5 cans on the first test run. I says, and mail it with other food in the package. So you're not just mailing cans of Campbell soup. You open up the package, there's going to be all different types of food products that we're allowed to have. I says, and throw in a couple of bars of Irish Spring soap because they smell strong. It can cover up any scent, even though they're going to be sealed. I says, and, that's it. And so he went home and we did our first test run. What he did was he took the can, a 16-ounce can. You were only allowed to receive cans up to 16 ounces in prison. So he took the can and he put it on a scale, and he put 2 peaches in the can, and then he filled the rest up with vodka until it got to 16 ounces. And then if he had to put another peach in, whatever, he did what he had to do. And then he sealed it on the canning machine, and he put the label on there. He crazy glued the label on, and it looked absolutely perfect. Beautiful. It looked untouched. It looked, perfect, like it was on the store shelf. And so he mails me this package, and he lets me know. He comes to visit me and says, "Listen, I mailed the package yesterday." He says, "And you should get it any day." A couple of days later, my name appears on the package list, and I go down there and I pick up my food package. You I bring it back to my cell, and I crack one of the cans open, and I have 4 or 5 cans of vodka, which is a nice amount, 16-ounce cans. I got about 5 of them. So I'm about a few pints of vodka from the street. And needless to say, me and a couple of my buddies get hammered drunk. You know what I mean? We wait for the right time. We don't just open them and drink them right there. Sit in my cell in the evening. I make myself a screwdriver. I get a little orange juice, put a little orange juice in there. I get a little ice because you can get there's an ice run every night where you're allowed to pick up ice. And I sit in my cell and I have a couple of nice screwdrivers as I'm sitting at the typewriter, typing my letter. I give my boy Hector some. Hector was next to me in the cell at the time. I give Hector some. Of course, I call my uncle. I tell him, touchdown, touchdown. It worked 100%. I says, let's bang out another one. Let's do another one. So, of course, we do another one. Now, as a prisoner, you're only allowed to receive 2 packages a month. You're allowed 35 pounds a month. You can get that 35 pounds of food in one package, or you can break it up into 2 packages. So the first package that he mailed was 17, 18 pounds. And so I still had 18 pounds left, whatever it may be, 16, 17 pounds left. So I tell him, mail another one. So we do another one. This time, he does 6 cans, and I sell 3 of them for $50 a piece. So I get $150, and I keep 3 of them for myself, and then I hit my uncle off with the money. He really didn't even want the money. You know what I mean? But he's doing it for his love of me, and he's doing it for the excitement. I guess he likes getting away with it. And so I start to do this every month, and it got to the point where I was mailing packages to my buddy's name. I said, listen, I reached my limit with packages this month, but let him mail you a package. And he started mailing it to my boys too. And of course, because he gave it to them, because I was mailing it to them, I gave them a couple of cans for themselves, and I would keep the rest. And that's the way it would work, And so a lot of times we would save them for the football games at night. For whatever occasion, we would have these things. But then he said, listen, I could put other things in the can as well. It doesn't just have to be alcohol. He wouldn't really get into narcotics, but he would do marijuana, even though that is a drug. He would put some weed in there. He would seal it up, put it in birthday balloons, a few of them, and tie them in knots and put them right in the liquid and mail it. So it was just an ingenious way, and it was working amazing. I remember a funny story is the Jamaicans in Sing Sing. I was in B Block at the time. There's a little hill. Everyone's hanging out in the recreational yard, but there's a little hill in the recreational yard. There's a television up there. That's where we would watch the games, watch a little TV, play cards. And the Jamaicans and the white guys shared the hill. Everyone has their own spot in prison. The Cubans, the Colombians, the Dominicans, the Bloods, the Latin Kings, everyone's got their own spot. So the Jamaicans and the white guys shared this hill. They had one part of the hill. We had the other part of the hill. And a couple of the Jamaicans, really good dudes. I got a lot of love for these Jamaicans. They were really good guys. One of them was named Rusty. Rusty was a good dude. He had a life sentence. The other one was Andrew. Andrew had a lot of time too. And they used to sit and play dominoes a lot. They would sit by the TV and play dominoes. And so there's about 4 or 5 of them around the domino table. And I have a nice Tang container filled with vodka, with real vodka. Now, vodka looks like water, So as they're playing dominoes, I just go up and I put it right in the middle of the table. And Rusty looks at me and, what a guan, fish, what a guan. I said, that's for you. That's a gift right there, Bregin. That's for you. So he says, what? I said, that's vodka from the street. Absolute vodka from the street. Beautiful. This is very hard to get in prison. Almost impossible to get in prison. Unless you have an officer bringing it in for you, or you find a way to smuggle it. Real liquor from the street is not something that you see in prison. Very rarely. And so I tell him that's for you, man, So the other Jamaicans are looking at me. A couple of the guys don't know me. They're like, yo, what's this guy doing? So I said, open it, Rusty. Open it. Smell it. Taste it, man. That's for you and your boys to enjoy the night in the yard tonight. And he opens it up. He smells it. All the other Jamaicans, all the other brethren are looking at him. And he smells it. He took a little sip and he said, Bomboclat, Bomboclat. I said, that's it, Rusty. Enjoy that, brother. Enjoy that, you know. So, of course, he came back later on. Yo, Bridget, can you get me another one? I said, I'll get you another one, Rusty, man. Rusty was my man. He was a good dude. Right. So this is going on. This is going on for a little while. And then, of course, there's a downfall, right? There's a downfall. I'm in the yard one night. I'm in the prison yard one night. And, I come in from the yard. Yard closes about 9:30 at night, whatever it was. And when I'm walking, I was on the flats. It was called Q Gallery, which was the flats. I was in Q61 cell. And as I'm walking in, I see that my cell door is open, which is unusual, you know, or because when you come in from the yard, you pull your cell door open and go in. But my door was open. I saw a few officers there. They point the finger and say, there he is. I had a little weed in my pocket, so I dropped the weed on the floor. I tell my man, grab that, grab that. My buddy scoops that up for me. This way I don't get caught with the weed. I'm young. I just went into prison. I was still a troublemaker, you know. And so they grab me, they pat me down, pat frisk me. I go in my cell. My cell is turned upside down. They search my whole cell, threw everything all over the place. I don't know what's going on. I asked the officer, yo, what's happening? He says, just lock in. It's the end of the night, 9:30. So I lock in. I put my cell back together. I got to put everything back. And in the morning, they come and get me. Two officers make me put on my state greens, which is the state shirt, state issued pants, state issued boots, and they take me to the warden's office. This is unusual. Usually you don't go to the warden's office. We call them superintendents in New York State. They're not really called wardens anymore. So they take me to the superintendent's office, and I sit down at his desk just like this. He's on the other side. I have a couple of officers next to me, a sergeant, a lieutenant, whoever it is, you know. And he says to me, who is so-and-so, right? And so he says a name that I never heard in my life, because what happened, obviously, is they caught one of the packages coming in. They found the vodka in the cans. The reason they found it, I find out later on, is that one of the cans started leaking. And when the officers opened up the package, they smelt the alcohol. They searched the whole package. They found the alcohol concealed inside of the cans. They went and ripped my cell up, which was a mistake. You'll see later on. They went and ripped my cell up. And now they have me sitting in front of the warden, and he's asking me who that name is on the return address of the package. So now he says, contraband. I said, what am I doing here? I don't know who that person is. He goes, contraband was found in a package that was mailed to you. Boom, everything clicks in my head. I know what's going on. Got time to play stupid. I said, really, what did they mail me a knife? Did they mail me a gun? Would they mail me? Oh my God, someone mailed me contraband? Hey, you know, he's not going for it. Listen, who is this person? I said, I never heard of that name in my life. He said, who do you know in Hicksville, Long Island, or wherever it was? I said, I know people all over Long Island. I said, I was born and raised in Long Island, but I never heard that name before. He's getting pissed. I want to know who mailed you this. I want to know how long this has been going on. Who sent you? I says, I don't know anything. I says, Warden, I don't know anything, you know. He says, let me tell you something, son. I don't want this shit in my facility. I says, someone can mail me a gun tomorrow. I have no power over what anyone mails me. You understand me? I says, listen, I have nothing to do with this. I have nothing to do with this, you know. So he's getting pissed. And finally, I say, what gets him really angry is because this is going on for 10 minutes, the back and forth. I say to him, listen, that's not even my package. That package belongs to you. What? I said, possession is 9/10 of the law, right? I never possessed that package. I was never called to the package room to get a package. I never signed for a package. I said, if I would have received a package from someone under that name, I wouldn't have accepted the package because I don't know who that is. And you have to give me the benefit of the doubt. So I've never possessed that package for you to charge me for what was ever in that package. He said, let me tell you something, son. I said, do me a favor, Warden. I've been nothing but respectful to you, right? I says, I sat here like a gentleman. I said, you can call me prisoner. You can call me inmate. You can call me mister. I said, but I'm not your son. He goes, you're an asshole. I said, you're an effing asshole. Boom! I get punched right in the face by one of the officers, And even before that, what caused the punch in the face was the lieutenant said, you better watch who you're talking to. I said, let me tell you something. I cursed him out, and then bang, I get the shot in the side of the face. Knocks me down on the floor. They pick me up, drag me to my cell. I get to my cell. They give me a tier 3 ticket. Okay, and I'll show you a clip of the ticket. I still have it all these years later. Part of my disciplinary record. I get the tier 3 ticket for smuggling, contraband, and you have to go to a hearing, right? And so now I get called to the hearing, and when I get called to the hearing, see, they made a mistake. Their big mistake is that I never signed for the package, and they jumped the gun and went and ripped my cell apart and then called me to they did it backwards, and they take me to the disciplinary hearing. When I go to the disciplinary hearing, there's a real nasty female lieutenant in there. She does not like prisoners at all. I wish I could remember her name. I don't know if it was Gladden or I can't remember her name, but I go in there and the hearings are recorded. The disciplinary hearings are recorded. It's an actual hearing. You can appeal it. You can go to outside court in the local town and challenge the verdict. I mean, it's a real hearing. And she turns on the tape and she says, state your name and number for the record. So I state my name and number and she goes, hearing is dismissed. And she shut the tape off. I think she means it's like dismissed for the day. So I said, do I have to come back? She says, no, you can go. Ticket's dismissed. I says, that's it? It's over? She goes, it's over. You can go. I says, thank you. And I get up to walk out. And just as I grab the doorknob, she says, let me tell you something. She goes, I have 17 years as a correctional officer. She says, you can't tell me that you didn't know what was in that package. And you can't tell me that it wasn't meant for you. And I want you to know I'm coming for you, mother effer. So I said, can I leave? She said, you can go. Boom, I leave. And I said, oh, they're going to come get me. But I'm happy to beat the ticket, happy to beat the ticket. And I get to my cell. And as soon as I get to my cell, this Jamaican officer shows up, an officer. And Officer Bailey was his name. Real good officer. All the prisoners liked Officer Bailey. Good dude. And he comes to my cell and he says, puts a urine bottle on the thing. I says, oh, man. He goes, the administration put me in for a urine test now. I beat the ticket. They're going to come after me. So my urine is dirty because I was smoking a little pot and I was drinking alcohol. So when I shake my head, Officer Bailey says, if you're dirty, don't pee in the bottle, fish. So I put a little water in there. Nothing but water. Boom. It comes back dirty for drugs. Comes back dirty for drugs. They're setting me up now. So now I go to that hearing, right? I get another disciplinary ticket for drug use. I go to that hearing, and when I go to that hearing, I challenge the officer, and I say, listen, what did you find in my urine? It's very complicated. You have to challenge the urinalysis machine, the calibration, the amount of time they left the specimen in the refrigerator. Everything is in a logbook. What time did you take it out? What time did you put it in? How many times did you test it? What was the level of narcotics that you found inside of the urine? You really have to know what you're doing in order to fight and challenge the dirty urine. But what I did was I got some paperwork on the officer Ortiz who tested the actual urine. He was caught falsifying a urine a year earlier, and he was sued in outside court a couple of times. He was caught falsifying urines, right? And he was still running the urinalysis machine because it's the Department of Corrections and they don't care, right? And so I challenged his credibility to even test my urine because he set me up too, And so I said in the hearing, listen, he didn't only fabricate it. I said, I didn't even put urine in the bottle. They said, you're admitting to tampering with a urine because we'll give you another ticket. I said, then write the other ticket. I didn't only tamper with it. I fabricated the whole thing. I said, the question is, how did this officer find it positive? I said, for narcotics. I said, he's been found guilty twice in outside court, right? Boom, 60 days, locked up, bang. So they locked me up for 2 months, right? And That was in December, right, of 99, I believe, December of 99. I'll show you the ticket right there. Well, give me a second. I'll show it to you right after I tell you the conclusion. So I'm doing my 60 days locked up, solitary. I'm in there for a couple of months, and you're allowed 1 hour. It's like a keep lock. You're locked in your cell. I did good, because if it was under 90 days, instead of getting shipped out to solitary, they'll just lock you in your cell for a couple of months without letting you out. It's called keep lock. So they put me keep lock for 60 days, and loss of commissary, whatever else, all the other little things. And I have about 10 days left, and I'm in the Keep Lock recreational yard doing pull-ups. They give me another misbehavior report. They say I was instructing martial arts to another inmate. Untrue. I wasn't instructing. They knew that I had some martial arts training in my life, and because they find out everything about you, and they see me wax a few people in there. And so now they give me a ticket for instructing martial arts to another inmate. I call that officer in my disciplinary hearing, and I start questioning him, and he gets caught in his lies because he didn't see me instructing martial arts to anyone. They're just out to get me because I cursed out the warden for that alcohol package. That's what it was. You can't curse out a warden. You can't even beat a ticket and embarrass them. They're very childish, and they will come get you. Whether you are in the right or whether you're in the wrong, they will come get you. They have a very childlike mentality, and they will not let the prisoners win, very rarely. And if you do win in outside court, they will come set you up a large amount of the time. That's what they do. They will plant drugs on you. They plant a weapon on you. They're lying in these hearings like crazy. They have no morals whatsoever. They were lying about the urine test. They're lying about the martial arts. You know what I mean? I mean, what's fair is fair. So all they're doing is teaching the prisoner that they don't play by the rules either. All they do is teach the prisoner that they violate the law as well. All they do is teach the prisoner that they're not going to follow any rules either. And all that does is teach the prisoner animosity. And it teaches the prisoner that the system is full of shit. Okay? That's what it teaches them. And so you're releasing this prisoner back to the street. That's what you learn about the system, because they don't play fair, right? So now, of course, they find me guilty for the martial arts ticket as well. And I forget what they gave me. Another 30 days in solitary, another 60 days. I have to look on the ticket. There's the ticket right there, if you see. You see, it says, you could take a look at that for a second. You can see the dates, the drug use, the smuggling. And it was after this, right? It was after this that it wasn't long after at all that they show up at my cell with some draft bags, and they say, "You're on the draft. Where am I going?" They said, "Take a guess." I said, "You're probably sending me to Clinton or Attica." They said, "You got that right." And they took me from Sing Sing, and they shipped me all the way up to Attica. And that was my punishment for cursing out the warden and getting the alcohol mailed in. And that was the story of the alcohol inside of the prison system. And I got shipped up to Attica. I've told the story before of what happened when I got to Attica, but I don't know if any of you have seen it before. Let me know. I could always tell that part of the story again, because it is a pretty crazy story. When I got off the bus in Attica, they were waiting for me. Out of all the guys that got off the bus, they were waiting for me, because the warden sent the word. I'm sending you a wise ass up there. You know what I mean? And they gave me a beating, and it was a rough way to enter Attica. If you guys want to hear that, I could tell that part of the story again. But was getting drunk and in Sing Sing worth it for all that I went through? Maybe. I would say no now, but at the time, I was a kid, 27 years old. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I'll give you another story soon. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy. And I'm wrapping this up. Bye-bye.